Yo, what is going on, guys? In today's video, we are going to be counting down the top 10 best champions released in 2021 into Marvel Contest of Champions. Now, this list is Legacy's list, so it's my own opinion. If your opinion differentiates from mine, that is totally fine, because my opinion is based off of my experience playing this game throughout the last year with all these characters. I definitely played a lot of characters more than a lot of other characters, so my opinion is totally going to be biased and skewed based upon my own experiences, and so are yours, and that is totally fine. But being a YouTuber, I do try to take other people's experiences and what I've heard from other people when constructing this list, but again, it still is my list, so it's going to be heavily biased, of course. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and get into it. So, 2021, man, was actually a pretty phenomenal year champion-wise, I would say. We've had a few just insane champions. Like the top 5 list is where you start counting down. I'd say like top 6, some really insane champions. But overall, just like a lot of good ones. Only a few really bad ones, which I think I'm going to make a separate video talking about top 5 worst champions released this year. That'll be a fun one to talk about, but this one's focused on the positives. So if your favorite character or someone that you think deserves to be in top 10 doesn't make the list, they probably just barely missed out. It was really hard, like the 9, 10, 11, 12 area, to figure out where those champions go is really difficult, because I feel like they're on a pretty even playing ground. So, for example, Craven didn't quite make the list. I think he definitely has potential to be on the list, but I haven't played with him enough. He's just too new right now for me to put on this list, and I'm not sure if he quite makes it or not. That's an example of someone like that who doesn't quite make the list. So, coming in at the number 10 spot, we have Mr. Negative. So, Mr. Negative is I feel like he's flown under the radar quite a bit, and it makes sense because the character that he was released with, ShangChi, definitely had the spotlight, of course. I mean, it was his movie that was coming out, so he should absolutely be having the spotlight, and Mr. Negative wasn't in the movie, so, you know, he's just more of a in-game antagonist, not an MCU one yet. So, I mean, it makes sense that he flew a bit under the radar, and I don't think he's nearly as good as ShangChi either, so again, it makes sense. But Mr. Negative, in his own right, is a really powerful champion, and I think definitely underrated. I've seen some really good gameplay from MP Blaze. He uses him in Alliance War. Some really cool stuff with him. That's where I first started really seeing Mr. Negative gameplay, and then I put together a gameplay video with Mr. Negative. Is a bit of a side project for something else, so I never uploaded it, but I learned how to play him and started testing him in lots of different matchups, and I was like, wow, like this guy is good, he's fun to play, and I really enjoyed him. So I think Mr. Negative, because of all those reasons, he clinches that number 10 spot for me. So coming in at the number 9 spot, we have a mutant champion, and that is, we're in the science class, Strife. So, Strife, I recently pulled this guy, was really stoked to get him. I think Strife is phenomenal, and Swadia took him to rank 4, which should speak volumes on, you know, how good of potential this guy really does have. But unfortunately, I couldn't put him any higher, just because I think on day-to-day stuff, the other characters above him are just way more useful on the day-to-day. For example, for me, you know, with Strife, when he first came out, I was like, this dude sounds like an Abyss monster, and I brought him into the Abyss, and he did a fantastic job in the Abyss. Especially as a horseman, he's just insane. But I'm done the Abyss. I have no need to go back into the Abyss. Like, I don't have a real need for Strife in my roster, and so I just don't end up using him as much, and that's a big part of this list. Like, the characters up higher, I'm using a lot of day-to-day, everyday kind of stuff, you know? So I think Strife is really great, and definitely good for people who need to clear the Abyss, you know, and in those situations, he could be way higher up on the list, but I think he is a really cool champion, our version of Batman in MCOC. So coming in at the number 8 spot, we have our first tech champion, Oh, I don't have him as a 5-star, which is Nimrod. So Nimrod is another case of being overshadowed by the other character accompanying him in the month, which was Kitty Pryde, which makes sense. Kitty is pretty crazy. We'll be talking to her about her later on in the video, of course, at the higher spots of the list. But yeah, Nimrod, he makes the number 8 spot. I think Nimrod is fantastic. I've seen some really cool stuff with him. I still personally haven't played with him a bunch, but from what I've seen and heard, it's all good things. First of all, he just absolutely crushes the mutant class, which is kind of like how Human Torch is with the Mystic class. And any one character that has the ability to counter close to an entire opposing class, that is insane. There's only 6 classes, so to have one character that's good against one of those 6 classes on your team, boom, like you bring that character to a quest and they cover any of those class types that you come across, boom, they got it covered. That's huge. That's absolutely huge. And I've heard of Nimrod being able to do all kinds of other stuff, even outside of that mutant hunting programmed thing that this crazy dude has. And also his special 3 is fantastic. Just having a bunch of sentinels come in. That's sick. So yeah, Nimrod gets the number 8 spot. Definitely hope to get him as a 6-star in the next 6-star featured crystal. Moving to the number 7 spot, we have yet again another tech champion. This time, Penny Parker. So I think Penny Parker is better than Nimrod overall. Penny is one of the craziest defenders I think we've ever had. Just an absurdly good defender. Just such a good defender. I really wanted her for defense, not even for Alliance War, for the solo competitive mode. If you guys saw the Summoner Showdown, we didn't see a Penny Parker a single time. Out of, I'd say, like 80 to 90% of the matches, she was just banned. She was just straight up banned. There were a couple matches where I noticed she wasn't banned, but she didn't end up getting picked. So she wasn't used the entire thing, mainly because she was banned so much. And I think that should just speak volumes to how good of a defender she is. And at the time, she was a bit newer. But still, she is such a good defender that once that solo competitive mode comes out, I want to have her at rank 3. If anything, just to waste the opponent's ban. If I can just get my opponent to waste one of their bans on Penny Parker, perfect. That's perfect, man. Boom. You're wasting your ban on this scary-looking defender because she's that good. Just the scare factor alone. That's one of the reasons why I wanted her so much. And she's actually a beast on offense, too. She has her uses offensively as well. So, Penny Parker, man, best tech champion of the year, I think, easily, and just best defender of the year, too. Just pretty insane champion all around, but she makes the number 7 spot for me. Honestly, I could argue her higher, but the point of this list is more so for offensive use. But yeah, Penny does make that 7th spot for me. Coming in at number 6, one of my favorite champions of the year, actually. I was just so impressed. Spiderman 2099. So him and Penny came together, and they're together on this list too. Just an insane month. This dude flew under the radar for a long time. I think I was kind of taking a bit of a break from the game, or taking a bit of a step back when he came out. So I never played him in the CCP when he came out, and I had just heard very mixed things and nothing like super positive. I heard like from some people, yeah, he seems a bit underrated, but like nothing crazy. And when I finally got my hands on this dude, it blew my mind how good he is. I'm like, this guy is insane. He quickly became one of my absolute favorite characters in the entire game. I just fell in love with him for a couple of reasons. Reason number one, again, super biased, because I love Spider-Man. He's my favorite superhero in any and everything. So I love him. So just because he's a Spider-Man character, that made me like him a lot from the beginning. And just fell in love with his abilities. Now, he's definitely the most... I won't say he's very niche in his matchups. He's not going to be good for everything by far. There's definitely a lot of matchups where he's not going to be good or even the best option. So, a lot of situations where he won't be the best and not even that good of an option. I said it backwards. But in the matchups where he is good, no one's better than him. And anywhere that there's True Strike, you can read right here, gain 75% damage resistance if the opponent is under the effects of True Strike. That is the most insane ability in the game. Like, that's the biggest advantage in the game, I think, of any character in any situation. Magneto, before, I thought had a pretty insane one and a fully built on Morningstar in their respective matchups, with Magneto being his metal champions, having 50% perfect block and all this stuff, and Morningstar having 50% perfect block and her creates regen and everything like that. But this takes it to another degree, man. This is just so ridiculous. And the war boss node in Alliance War has True Strike. So it just makes him this insane, godly war attacker. And war, right, lately, for me, has been like the biggest and main focus of the game because I've done everything else. So this is what takes Spidey to the number 6 spot on the list. I want to take him higher, but he's just so matchup dependent that I can't really put him any higher. But in the situations where there's True Strike, it's just, you have an overwhelming advantage. Like, you can literally play so bad and still win the fight. It's ridiculous. And I've seen it. I've seen some rough boss fights. They still get the solo because he's just so good. You take minus 7% reduced damage. That's all damage. That's suicides. That's recoil. You can heal from your poison and bleed suicides through willpower because you have this resistance. It's just insane. It's absolutely insane. So that's Spider-Man 29. Now we get to the top 5 best champions of 2021. And at number 5, we have Sigil, Scarlet Witch. So I was debating even putting her on here, but you know, on this picture that MCC tweeted out about champions for 2021, you can see her. She's on the bottom left there. So I'm counting her. You know, technically she came out 2020 with Spider-Ham, but you know, she wasn't like out. But we're gonna count her. So Sigil Scarlet Witch, man, had so much fun playing around with her. She proved herself to be a monster in the Abyss. Even like a 4-star can do work in the Abyss. That should speak volumes to how good she is. Again, it's another one of those characters where she suffers from matchup dependency, where you know, a lot of the other champions on this list, it doesn't really matter about the matchup so much, as the characters' just abilities are so good, they can counter so much. But where Sigil Scarlet Witch, you know, she is a bit more matchup dependent, but when you put her in those right matchups, it's insane, especially if you have max Mystic Dispersion. There's buffs to be nullified, there's buffs to be copied. You can just get insane damage going, especially with all the degens on the special 3, and it's just nutty. Her ability to nullify on parries is very unique and very cool. And yeah, you pair up with 5 out of 5 MD and a buff heavy matchup. It's insane. And I wasn't even playing her to her full potential. I've heard of other rotations and playstyles to use that make her even better. So yeah, she gets the number 5 spot on my list. And the really cool thing about her is anyone can get her. It's guaranteed to get her if you just have the Sigil for long enough as a 6-star, which I don't think that's really ever been a thing before for getting a Beyond God tier 6-star champion. Pretty much guaranteed. It is, again, if you keep the subscription for long enough, which I think is worth it if you play this game seriously. You're an endgame player. Yeah, I think it's worth it. For the catalyst storage alone, it's come in handy at many points. But yeah, that's number 5. Now we get to the top 4 list, and coming in at the number 4 spot, we have Null. So Null, it's a love-hate relationship I have with this dude, because I fell in love with him, man. When he first came out, I thought he was so good. I wanted him so bad. I was thinking about making him my first 6-star rank 4. I have just an uber exuberant, is that the word I'm looking for? Exuberant amount of cosmic catalysts. Just so many of them. I've had so many of them for so long, and so just new really good cosmic champions. Yes, give them to me. I want to rank them up. I want to use those cosmic catalysts. And Null, he's just so badass, being like the god of symbiotes, and I was expecting so much. And at first when it came out, people were disappointed, but then this is like, no, don't be disappointed. He really is really good, and all this stuff that he can do, and I had so much fun making those videos. And then I spent about like $1,000, which is way more than I've ever spent going for one individual character. The most I spent before is like 2, 3, maybe 400, maybe 500 at most, with like a sponsor or something too. But over $1,000 was put in trying to get this guy, and some of it was sponsors with Damn Epic Whale. Big shout to him. I couldn't pull him as a 6-star, so that made me kind of hate him now, because for being a jerk and not pulling him. But I can't deny how good he is. Just so insane with his damage output, his regen potential, his power control potential, his bleed, and all of that put together just makes such for a crazy combination. Very suicide friendly as well. He's just a monster, dude. He's an absolute monster. I think he definitely deserves that number 4 spot. Now, top 3, I'm sure you guys can guess the big 3 of the year. I'm sure you can guess, but it's what order they're in is what makes it interesting. So, coming in at number 3, I think this one will be expected. The next ones are going to be the topic of hot debate. So, number 3, we have ShangChi, Mr. Negative's counterpart of the year. ShangChi, one of my absolute favorite champs of the year. I just love his playstyle. I love how his abilities were constructed. I think it's one of the most well-designed characters I've ever seen in the game because it's not overpowered, it's balanced, and it's still really strong. Maybe it's a bit overpowered. I shouldn't say it's not overpowered, but I feel like it's pretty balanced, and it still feels really strong, and it feels really good, but it doesn't feel like broken like some of the other characters we're about to talk about. I feel like ShangChi's in a perfect place. And I think he's just a really good overall champion. There's so much utility that he can have, so much damage that he can do, and it's all in your control. It's all in the palm of the player. You control your own combos. You do what combos you want for what you need in a matchup. And again, that's what makes ShangChi not so matchup dependent, which some of the other champions we're talking about suffer from, like Spiderman 2099, Sigil, Scarlet Witch. Because ShangChi, depending on the matchup, you can just change your playstyle. And I love that, man. I love the controllability to the character. It's you can play him different than anyone else. You know, it's in your hands. You control how he works, what abilities you want to use, and I think that's just so amazing. I think he's just such a well-rounded champion. I think he's really great, and I'd love to put him higher, but the next 2 characters are just way past that point of balance. They're pretty broken. So let's talk about them. So it's really tough. It's obviously Hercules and Kitty Pryde. There's no point in trying to hide it. You guys know it's them. You know, but which one do I rate as number 1 and which one do I rank as number 2? And to be honest, like, it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. You can rank them however you want. Of course, me having Kitty at rank 4, I'm going to put her above him, and I'm going to be biased. Of course I am. So that puts Hercules at the number 2 spot, and we'll talk about why I chose to do this. Let's talk about Hercules a little bit first. So Hercules, man, this dude is insane. And until Kitty Pryde came out, he was easily the best champion of the year. He was the community voted for champion, which is very interesting. And I think that's a really good sign of things to come for the next community voted champion. Quicksilver, vote Quicksilver. Has a lot of potential. Whoever gets voted for, Quicksilver. I think they're going to turn out really good. Quicksilver. But Hercules turned out amazing. Now, I think I've only played Hercules. Well, I've played him Awakened on the CCP a little bit, but I've mainly only played Hercules Unduped. And Unduped, he just feels like a really solid champion. I really like how he plays. It feels really rewarding for intercepting and having good play. And I love intercepting. Is one of my favorite things to do in this game, like when I'm in a fight. So being rewarded for it and playing Herc, I love it. I've already fallen in love with Hercules, and I just love his playstyle. And he seems like a pretty, fairly balanced champion. You gotta throw your special 1s to really increase your crit rate. You gotta throw your special 2 to really increase your critical damage rate. Special 3 has some interesting utility with an indestructible buff. There's some cheese you can do with that. But, nothing really seems crazy or out of control with this guy. His damage, once you ramp it and build it, it's really good, which is fair because you've built it up. But where he gets to this broken point is with his signature ability. To get that immortality buff and to be able to pause it by doing basic attacks is insane. And during special attacks as well. It's insane, man. You can just chill at 1%. You can get through so much. And that Sig ability is what just makes him... It's so crazy, and I love it. I absolutely love it. I think it is a little broken, but I'm all for it, man. This was the community voted for champion. He should be that good, and he's Hercules. He's the son of Zeus, man. I'm so happy they did Hercules justice. We couldn't ask for a better Hercules in the game. We couldn't ask for one. And I don't think it's borderline on being too broken. Like, I think it's broken. I don't think it needs to be nerfed. But it's really strong, and I think it should be strong, and I think it feels great. And I think Hercules, yeah, I think he deserves that number 2 spot. But let's talk about Kitty Pryde. Kitty Pryde, I think, honestly, having her rank 4, there's not going to be anybody better than me to tell you this. I think she's too broken. I think she is. She's honestly, when I'm playing Kitty Pryde, the game just feels like I got training wheels on. Like, it feels so much easier. I feel like I can get away with just about anything in a fight, and it just feels too easy. And the game shouldn't be like that. But let me reel it back in. That's all I'm gonna say. I don't want to say too much because I'm not trying to get her nerfed. Even though I do think she is a bit crazy. But for that reason, that's why I put her above Hercules in my opinion. Like, I think she's just more broken than him. And I'm not saying that's the way it should be or shouldn't be. I'm just stating how I personally think and feel about these characters. So Kitty Pryde for me is the best champion of the year. So let's talk about what's so good about her. So her phasing mechanic is insane. It's on dash in, whereas Ghost is on dash out. And you can really start to get into her playstyle. And the real risk in playing her is at the start of the fight or once you lose your prowess. Because then you can't phase unless you have 3 prowess. So getting to that is really the only challenging part in a fight for the most part. But as soon as you do that, which is very easy, just any critical hits, any stuns, any intercepts is going to give you prowess, which you can do in one combo, and boom, then you can start phasing. And I don't think her phase is too broken or overpowered, playing her on her own. I think she's a pretty balanced champion, and just Kitty Pryde on her own, I think I would put at number 2. I think I would probably put Hercules above Kitty Pryde if it's just Kitty Pryde on her own. She had no synergies or anything. Just her, I think I'd put Hercules above her. I think her would be better. She would be a lot more skill determined to play without any synergies. Because you have to make your own openings and everything, and her phasing is really strong. She can't take any damage. Even unduped, she takes minus 80% damage, so it still is a ton of damage mitigation. And she bypasses people that bypass miss, which is pretty cool. She counters her own counter, which is awesome. It's like she just pulls out the Uno reverse on you. And yeah, just at her base, I don't think she's really that overpowered or that crazy. She is really good with suicides because whenever you're phasing, you take no damage, so you're only getting the plus heal from willpower, and you can phase for a lot of a fight. Also, as long as you just phase before you throw your specials, you can be completely immune to recoil. I think she is the best recoil immune character in the game. I think she's the first character to really be recoil immune. We had Ghost before, but her that's bugged anyways, and you need Hood to have Hood on the team. Kitty kind of has Wasp and Hood already built in to her kit, which is pretty cool and pretty crazy because Ghost needs 2 individual synergies to have that. But where Kitty Pryde goes from being just a beyond god tier champion to breaking the game, where that line gets crossed is with her only one synergy that makes her this broken, man, and that's the Tiger synergy. So I think if anything, this synergy, if it got toned down, I think that would be the best way to go. I really don't think she's that crazy in her base abilities. It's this synergy that just breaks the game for her. So what does this synergy do? Well, when Kitty Pryde has 10 or more prowess active, you become passively unblockable while phased. So it's extremely easy to get to this 10 prowess point. Couple intercepts, couple crits, couple stuns, boom, you're there. It's not hard at all, especially once you're already at your initial 3 prowess. Then you can start phasing. Then you can easily just phase intercept, and there's no risk because if you miss the intercept, they just hit into your phase, and you just kind of got to start over again. So it's really not challenging at all to get to this 10 points. That is the most challenging part when playing Kitty with synergy. But once you get there, man, it's just ridiculous. All you got to do is dash forward, hit 2 or 3 times, dash back, dash forward, hit 2 or 3 times, dash back, dash forward, and that's it. That's all you gotta do. And as long as you have the spacing right and you learn how to do this properly, you basically can't even get hit anymore. And it's insane. Of course, if depends on the champion and the nodes, that could complicate things, but she can bypass so much different things. It's quite ridiculous. It is quite ridiculous. Just this synergy alone, just being passively unblockable, you can just keep dashing in and out on your own accord. And again, if something goes wrong, they hit your miss. That's all that happens. And then you'll gain some prowess, then when your phase ends, you'll lose some prowess. But if you're already at like 20, you're not going to lose enough to go under 10, so you'll still be unblockable, then you just keep doing it. Dash in, dash out. You just keep going. So I think with that synergy, Kitty Pryde is the #1 champ of the year, which I have a lot of gameplay showing on her. And I will have another video coming out soon, hopefully tomorrow, showing off Kitty Pryde against all of 7.1, all the bosses in 7.1, and just kind of showing you guys how ridiculous she can be, bypassing all kinds of different things. And yeah, so that's my top 10 list of champions released in 2021. Let me know what you guys think. Do you agree with my list? I want to hear your thoughts. Do you think Hercules is better than Kitty Pryde, even with the Tiger synergy? Let me know. I'm very interested to hear about it in the comment section down below. I really hope you guys enjoy, though. I would really appreciate a thumbs up. A lot of thought went into these rankings. And yeah, that's going to do it. Thanks so much for watching. Peace out.